This is evaluation question 7. We'll be comparing our previous preliminary task to our current finished media product. In terms of the quality of the shot, through all of this, there's no particular shake on the cam. I think the pan's alright, it's fairly steady all the way through.
Yeah, basically there isn't much in the way of the camera shaking or moving as it shouldn't be. It's all steady considering the fact that we use the tripod throughout the whole thing, especially the scenes during the walking.
As you can see here, there was an unneeded zoom, which kind of ruined the quality of the shot as it got a bit more fuzzy as it went in. Here, camera shots seem to be steady still, as Jack said. We're using the tripod for the whole thing. So that pan there was just a bit jerky. As you see at the end, it went back and forth. So we could have fixed that.
Yeah, definitely. And the shot where it's coming over Sam and James's body as they're lying down, you can just about see it wobble because that was, I think, the only shot in which we just used the camera handheld and not the tripod.
I mean, these shots are all held fairly steadily because we are using the tripod, and I don't think in these shots there is any camera wobble or actually any human errors. Even this tracking shot of Asmal is held fairly steadily.
The freehand compared to the preliminary is more or less the same. It hasn't really changed at all. It's still pretty bad and wobbly. However, we have become more proficient in using the tripod. We were using different angles as compared to the preliminary, and each of those are steady. And as you can see now, that shot following Destiny walking down the path, that is still pretty shaky because that was done in handheld.
We used a variety of different shots in our final thriller compared to our prelim. As you can see, like the tracking shot, low and high angle shot. For example, the low angle shot at the beginning, when I was on the phone to Asmal, so it showed that I was bigger, like compared to him, for example.
Probably one of the biggest problems is that since we filmed it on different days, there's quite an issue of lighting because different days means different weathers, and as you can see now, it was light, and now it's relatively dark and there's no sun, it's mainly cloudy, and that kind of ruins the shot.
Throughout the whole preliminary task, the colour is pretty decent, except for the fact that because we'd done it on different days, you can clearly see the weather change. If you look at the sky in the film, you can see it one day that we filmed it being completely dark, and then the next it being sunny, especially when the lens flare comes in and shines onto the camera directly. But besides from that, everything seems to be pretty good.
Yeah, but as you can see, the lighting in the beginning scenes is fairly good quality. However, after I walk through the kitchen and outside, it becomes really, really dark. As you can see, you can barely see me. I look like a silhouette, especially with this tracking shot. But then again, it's dependent on whatever you're watching the thriller on.
The colour is pretty good, especially during the inside of the house parts. Everything is lit up pretty nicely and it's nice and vibrant. However, when it comes to the outside scenes, when Destiny is walking down the path, it is more or less just complete darkness. You cannot see very much at all. You can just about see the outline of Destiny and the sky. That's it, not much going on there. But when it comes to inside the shed, once the light is actually on, it again lights up and it gives like this kind of ominous feeling. The inside of the shed gives this ominous feeling as it's not very well lit up, not as lit up as the inside of the house, but not as dark as outside. So you can see what's happening but you can't see too much. You can't see what Destiny, for example, might have tucked away in the corner ready for Sam being tied up on the chair.
Well, in our preliminary, we didn't actually have any diegetic sound as we didn't have a boom to record it. So the quality of the sound would have been really bad. However, we did put a soundtrack in the background, and we did manage, like halfway through the scene, to crossfade it to another track, as you can see right here, while the drug deal was going on.
Throughout the preliminary task, we more or less just used non-diegetic sounds which we had edited in during the editing phase. We did add in some sound effects as well, which looking back on it are pretty unnecessary and could have done without. And the main reason why we don't have any diegetic sound is because the microphone had, I think it had run out of battery and nobody had realised, so by the time we take it back, started editing it, there's nothing we could really do about it and we had no time to go back out and refilm.
The music in general is pretty loud, so I did have to lower the audio levels, but there is a part near the end where it shows me and James commencing the drug deal that the audio suddenly cuts in, and we didn't realise until we'd already published it that we didn't actually add that gradually. That was just straight in, and we probably could have done without doing that, or at least making it more gradual lead up, but hey, that's what happens.
You live and you learn.
In the preliminary task, there was quite a problem with the continuity, because since we filmed on different days, the weather had changed. So shadows and sunlight would be in one shot, but then it would be completely cloudy in another shot. And to an extent, that broke the continuity and the immersion. But did it really matter? Not particularly, because it was still not incredibly noticeable.
When it came to the actors themselves, however, the costumes stayed the same throughout the whole of the filming and the recording, and the props stayed the same, although doesn't really count because there's only one prop, which is the pills.
Although the costumes were the same throughout most of the preliminary task, just between the last two scenes, if you look closely, you can see that James's shirt used to be pink, but now it's white, and his trousers used to be blue, but now it's black. So we messed up a bit there, as you can see.
In our final media product, none of the costumes actually switched, which compared to the preliminary task is an improvement, because in the preliminary task, James's entire attire changed, whereas in this one, nothing changed.
The continuity with the props compared to the preliminary tasks from the finished film is more or less the same. In the preliminary, we used all the props on the same day, so there wasn't much room for error. And it stayed constant, which is the same in Patience, the full opening. All of the prop scenes were done in one go, so we didn't really have time to mess up with it. It was just kind of done in one go.
In our finished filler, it was darkness throughout the whole film compared to our preliminary where it was just the weather shifting, so that would mess it up.
When it comes to the editing continuity and the preliminary task, we used a match on action, which is performed very well as both James and Sam walk around the corners. There are no cuts or jolts as to indicate those are two separate shots, so it looks like one of fluid action.
We did also add an eyeline match, which you can see when James sees me over the wall. As you can see his eyes, and then you see what he's looking at, which is then me. So that was also executed very well, except from the zoom.
Our finished media product also keeps the 180-degree rule, because all the shots that are filmed are basically filmed from the side of whoever it is, and it's just a constant look at one side of a person. And so compared to the preliminary task, it pretty much stays the same, where we didn't break it and we always know where the character is facing.
The match on action shots in the final finished thriller opening are pretty good, just like as in the preliminary, except we had decided to implement more into the final cut. In the final one, we have used the match on action both during the phone scene and during the scene where Destiny is walking around the corner and outside into the garden, and then again as he is walking into the shed. So in total, that is 3 match on actions, whereas in the preliminary task, we had only used 2. And overall, I think the match on actions in the final thriller opening were done at much better quality than the preliminary ones, as they just generally seem a lot smoother.
Although we didn't have an eyeline match, we did, as you can see in our finished thriller, we didn't actually have any transitions because it just flowed very nicely. So adding a transition, we think would have actually ruined it, compared to our preliminary where we did actually have a few like fades and dissolves and stuff.